Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of Psych Talks with Psychologist, and I am your host, Ms. Basha, Director at IJUS, Institute of Clinical Hypnosis and Related Sciences. Today we have with us Mamta Sharma, and she's going to talk about eclectic approach to therapy. So before I begin, all who are watching us, please feel free to ask questions in the comment section and we'll surely answer them. And you can also start a watch party on Facebook so that your friends and family can benefit out of it. ICHAS is an organization that focuses on helping psychologists, coaches, trainers develop advanced coaching and therapeutic skills. A brief introduction about Mamta. Mamta is an accomplished life coach and a cognitive hypnotic psychotherapist. She's also a director at ICHAS Support Foundation. She wears several hats like a coach, therapist, content strategist, consultant, and more. For more than a decade, Mamta has been conducting workshops and breakthrough sessions for groups and individuals, inspiring them to be aware of their power and specialness to make a lifelong dreams come true. She believes that each of us deserves to discover and live the best of us. So, welcome, Mamta, at Psych Talk with Psychologist.
Thank you, Ms. Ba. Thank you for that generous introduction.
You're very welcome. So, yes,
Yes.
Mamta, if you can give your introduction, or I mean, from your own words, if you want to share something about yourself, and then we can go ahead with our
Okay, I think Ms. Ba, you've said it all. In fact, more than that. And Ms. Ba herself is a wonderful coach, trainer, and therapist. I must tell everybody that. And
Thank you, thank you.
so, yes, I work as a coach. I'm also a trained psychotherapist and help individuals and groups achieve whatever goals they wish to in respective areas of life, personal or professional. So that's about me.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. So yes, we'll start with Mamta. When we talk about eclectic approach to therapy, can you just give us a brief understanding of what it is, and then we can go ahead with it?
Right. So, Misbah and everyone else who's watching us. So, when we talk about eclectic approach, it is an approach to therapy that integrates all the other approaches and fields in therapy together in a very seamless manner. So, this is different from a piecemeal approach where you just pick techniques or theories from here and there. So, we integrate them
Mhm.
seamlessly. And not only that, so when we use eclectic approach at iCharts, where we have created cognitive hypnotic psychotherapy, there we help practitioners and mental health professionals work both with the conscious and the unconscious using this eclectic approach.
Excellent. So more an eclectic approach. I would like to ask you, how does eclectic approach to therapies make it different from therapeutic alliances?
Okay, so Misbah, when when in the context of therapy, we speak about therapeutic alliance and rapport building. So the idea is that the client should be able to trust you, should feel understood, and not judged, and so on. And the
Hmm.
result is, it helps to make your therapy more effective and to help the client reach their objectives faster. So as I said, when we use cognitive hypnotic psychotherapy as an eclectic approach to therapy, so we the entire approach is very client driven, and our entire focus is on the client's objective. So apart from being able to listen effectively and listen without judgment, the therapist also learns to develop skills to understand the current situation the client is in, understand
Okay.
the future outcome, and what that future life would look like for them, once they reach that outcome. So they also
Mhm.
need to build and develop those skills, and then also help them work with I'll come to it later probably, how work with different layers of a problem. So help clients
Sure.
work with thoughts, emotions, beliefs, underlying values,
Wow.
and any past experiences or something that may be stopping them from reaching where they want to reach, and all the while keeping the focus on the client, and it's actually the client who is driving each session and the entire therapy for that matter.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm sure we're looking forward to a lot of informative uh, talks as in how we can go about having a eclectic approach. So let's have a quick hi to everybody who's joined us online. So hello everybody who's joined us and welcome to the live. And we have Mamta with us. Mamta can also say her quick hi. Hi Sanjana. Hi Nidhi. Hi Nusrat.
Yeah. Hi
Hi
everyone.
Geeta.
Feel free to
Hello
comment,
everybody.
share your
And yes,
observations. Yeah. And
feel free
any
to
questions.
comment, ask questions, and we'll surely answer them. We have one of the best people out here. And yes, I'll go back to my questions. So, Mamta, can you help us with what would be the key principles in eclectic therapy?
Okay. Uh, Misbah, once before I begin with eclectic, what eclectic means, and what are the principles underlying the entire approach, I would once again like to emphasize that when we are speaking about eclectic, it is not that we are looking at different fields in therapy or psychology as competing. It's
Right,
important to look at eclectic as all these elements being part of a greater whole, and that whole is eclectic, right?
right,
Which means you can not only integrate them, you can not only use them depending on the client's objective and the session's objective. You can also integrate any future approaches, therapies that you learn, any other techniques that you want to incorporate, or anything else that you're already using in your practice, right? So it's once
right.
again important to look at it as a greater whole and not as a sum of parts or even competing parts, right? Because
Excellent.
that may actually confuse you. And
Yeah,
also look at how each part influences the other,
right.
right? So an eclectic approach will help you integrate it. Once again, those are my favorite words, integrate and seamlessly. And I can't stop emphasizing on them because that is like a very important distinction to understand.
Yes, it is.
Right.
So yeah, coming back to if you could just share what would be the key principles on which the eclectic approach is based.
Right. Right.
So,
And correct. In fact, Misbah, we did an entire series on eclectic approach to therapy in which we described in great detail how we can integrate various approaches, how can they all be brought together. For example, if someone has learned CBT, so how they can make it a part of this. And the series was called True Talks for Therapists. It
yes,
was a 22 episode masterclass which was done live on Facebook for 22 days in a row. And anyone who's out there who want to, of course, we'll be discussing a lot of things here today, but if you want to understand more and really go into depths of it, then I would, I definitely recommend that you watch that series. It is out there on YouTube, I believe, right?
it's there on.
Right.
Okay. So I think Mamta, there's one question. I think Geeta has asked a question that is eclectic approach helpful for any kind of addiction?
Yes, it is, and I'll come to it when I'm, talking about the problem in detail and how we bring in all the approaches together. So, Geeta, if you can, hang on there for some more time, so I'll, take it up. And because I was
I'm
talking about
sure.
True Talks, so True Talks was also an iCharge initiative,
Yes. So
and
I'm going to talk about that.
right, okay, so please,
Yeah. Yes. So since she's already told us that in detail, if you want to have a understanding of eclectic approach and how to go about using it, though we are going to talk about it here, but in the True Talk series, which was an iCharge initiative, I would like all of you who has also been the part of that series. If you are there online right now, please comment yes and share your experience and your learnings with those who are present currently. And so that we can also benefit out of that. And then, and Mamta can also share with us how the eclectic approach is or what it is all about by giving some example.
perfect, perfect. Thank you, Misbah. And while you're all commenting and sharing about that, before I go forward and talk about the principles that you asked me initially, let's first look at the layers of a problem itself. So when a client comes to us with a problem, right, they come to us generally with a presenting problem. right?
Right.
Now, for example, the first thing that we do in an eclectic approach, and this is what we follow when we are practicing cognitive hypnotic psychotherapy, the first thing is we help the client understand where they are currently. So, very roughly, putting it, let's say everyone wants to get from point A to point B, right? Point A
Okay.
is where I am and what I'm experiencing, or it could be in terms of an emotion, in terms of a behavior, right? Or a thought pattern or some past experience. So wherever I am right now, let's call it point A. Everyone wants to go to point B from there. So which is I get angry, want to be calm, and so on, right? In fact,
Yes.
clients would definitely say, I get angry, I don't want to be angry. So that's how they
Hmm.
begin. Or I'm not happy with my partner, I don't know what to do. So it's very important, first of all, to help the client define these 2 points. Where am I and where
Hmm.
do I want to go, right? So
Right.
let's say that becomes the first layer of the problem. That's like the top layer of the problem, right? To help them define A and B. Once they can do that, then it's also important for them to understand what B would look like. So once I'm able to achieve or get where I want to get, or once I achieve my outcome, then what will that life look like?
Hmm.
Right? It's important for them to be able to create an inspiring, a compelling future and describe it in great detail to themselves so that they understand what they are asking for and aspiring for.
Right.
Right? So then, as I said, that is the first layer. Now, once they reach there and they also sit with the therapist and chalk out a very precise action plan, to reach there. So, taking a very simple example, like I want to lose weight, right? So probably I first need to understand what I need, what do I need to do to lose weight? Do I need to go to a gym and so on? What if I've tried everything and that has not worked for me? Are there other ways? So they'll actually write a step by step action plan. Once they write that, the therapist will also help them identify what are the hindrances that are stopping them from executing that action plan, right? Because there may be some things they are able to do, some they are not able to do. So the therapist will help them look at what is stopping them, what are those hindrances. And if you look at those hindrances, generally they will fall into one of three categories or four categories. So one is generally there's a lack of clarity. So the client may not know how or where they can seek help or what do they need to do, right? So I get angry, I don't know what to do about it. I don't even know what are the action steps. Then they can talk about lack of resources, right? I I'm frustrated because I want to set up a business. I don't have the money, right? They
Yes.
may lack a certain skill. I don't know how to present on stage, or uh, most of the times it will boil down to a certain mental state. So when I say mental state, for us means thoughts and emotions that stop them. The hindering mental state would be what stops them from doing that task and achieving what they really want to achieve or being where they want to be. So that becomes the
Right.
next layer of, right?
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
yes, so and as I said, mental state includes thoughts and emotions. So then the therapist needs to help them work with those thoughts and emotions. So they could help them with restructuring their thoughts and reconditioning their emotions, right? So that becomes the third layer.
Right.
Once they do that and the client is able to achieve a sustainable change, then that's good, right? But if the client is not able to see the change that they want to see in their lives by working with the thoughts and emotions, then we may need to go to a subsequent layer. So those thoughts and emotions may themselves be driven by a deeper layer of beliefs, values, or positive intentions. Then
Mm-hmm.
the therapist would need to work with that, right? And
Okay.
in some cases, then we may need to go to a further layer where these beliefs, values, or positive intentions or secondary gain, as we call it, may
Mm-hmm.
itself be driven by some past experience or an intense emotion that is coming from a repressed memory or a trauma in the past, right? So that would become the next layer that you work with.
Lovely. I think very well explained how the entire process goes. Uh,
Yeah.
so, anything more that we need to understand with respect to the key principles of eclectic approach, Mamta, or is this it?
Okay, so as I was saying that I would like to summarize, with the help of an example.
Sure.
So let's say that I'm working with a client who has trust issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the client cannot even define the problem, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
just going through some discomfort or something, and you ask them where do you see yourself currently, or what is your problem, what would you like to work with. They may not be able to do that itself, so I'm beginning at the first layer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we may use techniques based on metaphors to help them
Mm-hmm.
define the current scenario itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we can use techniques that are based on metaphors, and that also helps them become comfortable with the idea, because I'm not pushing them to tell me how they feel, you know otherwise sometimes in therapy we are repeatedly asking them, so how does that make you feel, right? But
Yes.
once they tell me that they're not able to, I immediately take them into a metaphor driven process, where they look at their current scenario, the future scenario that they would like to have, right? Once
Yes.
they have done that and they realize, let's say there are certain thoughts that are stopping them from, or there are certain thoughts that are bothering them or creating the current state, then I can help them with a cognitive or thought restructuring process to help them deal with those thoughts, or
Okay.
conditioning based process to work with the emotion. So for example, there is a beautiful technique in NLP which is called anchoring, so I may use that,
Yes.
right? uh, but if I find a pattern, right, then
Mm-hmm.
and I may see that there's something or I realize, or me and the client collectively, when we're working, we realize that there's something coming from the past, then we may use a regression based process. But the
Okay.
entire thing is very seamless for the client. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that we are, it is, the client doesn't feel that, I'm doing one thing and then another thing and then another thing. For them, it's like a one flowing process, right?
Okay.
Uh,
Makes sense.
which brings me to the next principle, which is, which has been borrowed from NLP. It's called the map is not the territory. So that becomes another important principle for us.
Wow. Can you explain us what is it exactly and how does that help, or how do you integrate it with your work?
Okay, so Misbah, let's take an example that today, let's say you and I, we end up having a heated argument on this interview about something. We don't agree on something, and we have a really heated argument, right? And the interview ends, we go home, and a few days later, we come across each other on the road or in a mall, say,
Hmm.
marketplace,
Hmm.
right?
मॉल
Uh,
खुलेंगे तब
huh?
मॉल खुलेंगे तब
Mall khulenge tab. Okay, let's say on the road somewhere, eventually one day. And we, so let's say I see you. Um, what do you think how would I react, or what would I think?
maybe you might just look past me, or you might just not ignore, or I don't know,
Right?
anything
Depending
of
on
that
how
sort.
bad it goes today,
Yes.
right? We may even change paths, and I may say, "Oh my God, din kharab ho gaya," whatever, right? On the other hand, say we end up having a wonderful rapport today, and we realize, we end up becoming the best of friends, and the same event happens in the future. Once we meet each other or come across each other on the road, we have not planned, it's a coincidence. How do you think I would feel or react?
Happy, excited to see, surprised.
Right, I may wave at you, I may call
Mm.
out to you, we may end up having coffee together somewhere, right? Right.
Yes.
And now imagine a third scenario where we have never met
Hmm.
ever, and we happen to make, for some reason, eye contact on a road somewhere. What do
Mm.
you think may happen then?
if we have not met at all.
If you're not met, there's no past
History to it.
connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure a neutral response. Mutual
Right.
response.
Right. So you realize, and I'm also addressing everyone who's watching, how our behaviors or actions or responses are driven not by what is happening. What is happening is two people happen to make eye contact or notice each other in a crowd somewhere or on the road somewhere, right? So our perceptions, our responses are driven by, oh, sorry, our perception, behaviors are driven by our perceptions, right?
Yes.
Uh, right? So the technical term for that would be subjective reality, right? The objective reality is two girls, two women see each other on a road somewhere, right?
Huh.
But what happens after that is driven from our subjective realities. This is what we refer to as maps. So what is stored in our minds is what drives us to do things, and subsequently we experience or see whatever we see and experience as a result of our responses and our reactions based on our perceptions, right? So
Excellent.
the territory here, when I say map is not the territory, the map refers to the perception that I have in my head, my past experiences and so on. And the territory is the actual reality, the actual event, the fact based information, right?
Okay.
So, in eclectic approach, when we are working with the client, we are actually working with their maps,
Hmm.
right? So, that is what we
Can you
have
share
to
an
keep in mind.
example for that?
Yeah,
You
of
already
course.
shared one, and if you
Yeah.
can have some more.
So, okay. So, I'll just explain one more thing and then I'll come to an example for that,
ठीक है,
right?
ठीक
So,
है.
while I say working with maps is important, it is also important to understand. I referred to it when we were talking about layers of the problem and creating an action plan and finding the hindrances, that
Hmm.
we need to be able to help the client develop the right skill and mental state to
Hmm.
resolve a problem or achieve an outcome, whichever it is, right? So, let's say a person is not confident of speaking on stage. In fact, they have say a really strong reaction to it when they are told to. Somebody may even start becoming anxious at the announcement that they have to do the next presentation. When they're told in office that next week there's a presentation. Somebody may feel anxious when they are about to step on the stage. Somebody will feel anxious when they are on the stage. And this could be for any reason. So it could be, somebody may be imagining in their head that people are going to laugh at me, right? Somebody may be imagining I will stammer. So
Hmm.
we need to work with what is in the client's map. So I cannot
Exactly.
use one, there will not be one solution to all public speaking issues with a number of people. Every
Right.
solution or every session or every client or every therapy will be different, completely customized to the client's map.
Yes. So it's important to identify.
Right. And depending on what they want to, you know, achieve.
Achieve.
So one person may say that, if I could just remain calm when I'm stepping onto the stage, I'll be able to manage anything, everything. Another person may say, oh no, I, immediately start panicking when my boss tells me you have to present. So you need to work with that differently.
Right.
Once again, identifying the layer of the problem,
Yes.
right? So, which brings me to the next principle, which is that the client may not be aware of that map or subjective reality. We need to understand this,
Okay.
right? It is not always in the conscious awareness. It's not obvious,
Hmm.
right? And that is why hypnosis becomes that glue or becomes that common thread that you know helps us integrate seamlessly, that I've been harping about, all these approaches together.
Now that is interesting and very, curious. I'm very curious about it. That you need to tell us how is hypnosis going to help us.
Right. So, okay. I thought there are some questions that you want to take. Are there?
Yeah, I there are. So if
Okay.
we can take the questions. So till now
Right.
we have one question only. That's Geeta's question of how addiction can help. Eclectic approach can help in any kind of addiction.
Right, right.
So if we
I'm
can answer it right
coming
now.
to, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you're saying something?
Okay, so I was just going to say that if we can take that question, or you can first explain to us about hypnosis and its integration in the eclectic approach, and
Okay, okay. And before I
whichever.
begin, I would like to ask everyone who's watching to, please say yes if whatever you've heard is clear. Please share a question if you have a question, any observation that you have, so that we know that we're making sense. Okay. Uh, so hypnosis, Misbah, to put it really simply and in short, is a state of hyper receptivity. So when the client is in a really receptive state, not only at the conscious level, which they are obviously, and that is why they're coming to you, right? So they're consciously
Right.
wanting to make some change or looking for some
Yes.
answer at least. So at the conscious level they are, but at the unconscious level as well. you know because there are times when emotions may be suppressed. There could be past experiences which are suppressed. There could be repressed memories. So it's very important, and as I said, those thoughts and emotions themselves could be driven by deep rooted beliefs, values, and positive intentions. So it's very important for us to be able to create a state in which the client is hyper receptive, right?
Okay.
So and uh, in fact, and this is not new, all fields of therapy talk about, agree on at least one thing, that the client wants to make a change.
Right.
And wouldn't a hyper receptive state be the perfect state in which the client can create a change for themselves?
I'm sure it is.
Right. So and a lot of time, most of the times in fact, the client is not able to make the change because the unconscious is not receptive, while consciously they understand, I don't want to be
Yes.
angry, I want to remain calm, I want to perform well, and so on. I don't want to be sad, but it is the unconscious that is not receptive to the idea. And that is why hypnosis becomes like this, um, the underlying theme, on the basis of which we integrate all these approaches together.
Okay. And now you will have to explain to us how does it become an underlying base to work with an eclectic approach.
Okay, so as I said, this is nothing new. So even when we talk about, let's say, in behavioral therapy, we work with
Mhm.
systematic desensitization and conditioning, right?
Right.
Now we are working with responses and emotions that are automatic, right? Say
Mm-hmm.
in systematic desensitization, you're trying to work with a phobia. Now that's a response that is automatically generated,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's spontaneous, which means you're working with the unconscious, aren't you?
Yes.
It's not something the client is consciously generating, right? Okay. When we work, let's say we talk about thought restructuring in cognitive therapies, right? We ask the client to practice the new thought, right? Keep repeating it to themselves. And the objective is to make it automatic and more natural,
Yes. Yes.
which means, again, we are talking about the unconscious, because that is the one that is controlling the natural, automatic, spontaneous responses,
Yes.
correct? And let's say, in I think many therapies today, we use guided imagery, visualization, creative imagination, and all such tools, right? All those are different
Right.
techniques to use a hypnotic state,
That
right?
sounds interesting.
Right. And let's go to psychoanalysis. So in
ठीक है.
psychoanalysis, when we are trying to recover repressed memories,
Hmm.
so where are these repressed memories?
दिमाग में.
दिमाग में, but दिमाग के किस हिस्से में?
Unconscious में.
Right. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have a tool or a method or a process to help the client get into a receptive state where they can also, get in touch with the unconscious, where the unconscious can send information to the conscious and vice versa. And then you can bring all these things, all these approaches that I just talked about. This was just one small example, right? Together.
Yes, that's a plethora of things together to work with the clients.
Right,
Looks like
right.
that.
Because then all that information can be brought to the conscious, and the therapist can help the client deal with it,
Yes,
right?
sounds interesting.
So, for example, Geeta was asking about, say, addiction, right?
Yes.
Right. Now, in addictions, in most cases, uh,
Mhm.
the addiction, the substance or the thing
Mhm.
that they're addicted to, right? When
Okay.
you talk to the clients and you help them explore their maps,
Mhm.
a lot of them will tell you that, let's say, when I smoke,
Mhm.
I feel more relaxed.
Mhm.
Or when I drink alcohol in a social gathering,
Mhm.
I'm able to be more comfortable in a gathering, in a large group of people. Now these are things that they can tell you consciously, probably with some, effective questioning. But a lot of times, those, we call them we call them secondary gain or positive intentions. Behind what is driving that addiction is at
Mhm.
an unconscious level.
Right.
Now, once you induce the client in a hypnotic state, in the hypnotic state, you can help the client work with
Mhm.
that positive intention directly,
Okay.
and to an extent that even if the unconscious does not want to divulge it to you or the client,
Mm.
even, we can help the unconscious fulfill the intention, because the intention would have some, that's why I call it positive intention. There would be some positive benefit that they're driving out of it. Feel relaxed, feel calm, feel more comfortable in a social setup or anything, right? So we can't get rid of the positive intention. We need to help the unconscious fulfill the same positive intention with some productive behavior,
An alternate behavior,
an
if I
alternate
can say that.
behavior which is more productive for the client going forward,
Right.
right? And then of course you can add, processes to help the client work with the thoughts, if there is a certain thought
Mm.
also being created, and this can
Mm.
all be done in one seamless process,
Mm.
right? So that is how, yes, eclectic therapy can help you work with the addiction. You will obviously also have to work with reconditioning the emotion that the client is experiencing. And a word of caution, if it is a substance that produces withdrawal symptoms, once the client stops consuming it, then you will have to work in collaboration with the rehab, where the client is an inpatient. So in case they go through withdrawal and all, then that can be managed within the rehab setup. But for example,
Excellent.
smoking and all, yes, this is one approach that you can use. But obviously, you need to be trained in inducing the hypnotic state and how to work with that and everything. So yes, you can use the
Okay.
eclectic approach. Yeah.
Yes. So Geeta, I'm sure you got your answer to it. And I think with respect to hypnosis, I think we can have entire episode by the end of the series. If you are okay with that, we can have one session
Yes,
for
yes, we
sure,
can, we
so
can, we
that we
can.
can explore it furthermore and people can become more aware about the positives of it.
Yes,
Samantha, if I had to ask you, how is, so you talked about thoughts and emotions, and when we also talked about cognitive therapies, so REBT
hmm,
also is there. So is it helpful, unhelpful, and how is it? Is it same or a different thing from
right, perfect.
working at
So
the
that
thought
also,
level?
yes, so you've asked it at the perfect time, because that also brings us to the next principle. Uh, Now, the so-called negative emotions, emotions can be both helpful and unhelpful, right? Let's take the example of guilt, right? Now, guilt on the surface looks like a very negative, so to say, or unhelpful emotion, right?
Hmm.
Now, and while this principle has been borrowed from REBT, we
Mm-hmm.
don't, literally go into the terminology of emotions. We like to use the client's term for it. So if the client wants to call
Mm-hmm.
something worry, it's worry. If they want to call it anxiety, it's anxiety. If concern is concern, and so on, right? But we do want to look at what exactly the client is experiencing and how to help them deal with it. Which once again brings me back to the skill and the state. Do they have the skill to be able to deal with it? Then
Mm-hmm.
my work or the therapist's work would involve helping them develop that skill and the right mental state, right? Which again,
Mm-hmm.
will be done during therapy. But uh, you know we do consider those emotions unhelpful when they become so intense that they stop the client from doing what they want to do or serving the purpose, that they are uh, supposed to. For example, I was talking about guilt, right? uh, so what do you think, if let's say I'm feeling guilty about something, what do you think is causing that guilt, or what do you think
Um,
makes rise to guilt?
Maybe there's a thought that something that you did is not right. Usually,
Right.
it is ethically or morally that makes us
Okay.
feel guilty.
Right.
Um,
And if something I did was not right, it means if that situation was to occur again in the future,
uh, I might feel more guilty.
I,
I might feel more guilty.
you may feel more guilty if you,
I've not done anything about that guilt
so
then.
if you've done the same thing, you've repeated the same action or behavior or said the same thing,
Yes.
right? Right. Which means guilt was telling you to, in the first place,
Learn.
learn, right? So guilt was probably telling you that this is not what should have been done, something else should have been done, right?
Yes.
So which means that if I feel guilty for something, let's say I spoke to my father in a certain way and I felt bad, or I'm feeling
Hmm.
guilty, right?
Hmm.
Then probably that guilt is telling me that the next time I should speak to him differently.
Hmm.
Then only I can change it, right? To speak to him differently, I should know two things. One, I should know how to speak. I should be able to speak in
Yes.
that manner.
Yes. So again,
Let's
I
say,
think state and skill.
absolutely, absolutely. So I should, let's say, I want to be more polite, let us say. So
Hmm.
then I should have the skill of being able to speak or talk politely. And in that conversation, or if let's say I was talking about a particular subject with my father, it was a certain topic or issue.
Hmm.
In that state, in that conversation, I should be able to remain in a specific mental state so that I can be actually be polite,
Yes.
right? So then it again help, goes back to the therapist being able to help the client identify that skill and state, and that again the client will define, not the therapist,
Okay. Okay. That
right?
makes sense.
Right. So
That makes
yeah,
sense.
somebody may say I want to be more polite. Somebody may say I want to be more assertive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I want to be more assertive and while remaining calm, so that being assertive in communication becomes the skill and calmness becomes the mental state,
I
right?
think
but
that's quite good.
but yeah, but if the guilt reaches a level where I feel so guilty that I start avoiding the
Mm-hmm.
topic or I start avoiding my father, and I'm not able to do what I wanted to do as a result of that conversation,
Hmm.
then that the same guilt which was being helpful in the first case will become unhelpful in the second,
Okay. Okay.
right? Right.
Yes.
So that is how we differentiate between helpful and unhelpful emotions. But the terminology, we don't label them as such, and that is how we work with it. We use the client's terminology.
Yes, I think that makes sense. Sumata, I have a question that why is it important for all the psychologists You have already given us the basis of this eclectic approach. So I would like to understand that why is it important for psychologists to use eclectic approach in their therapies?
Okay. Misbah, first is, as I, and that is why I began with different layers of the problem. One is the eclectic, sorry, just a second. The eclectic approach helps you to work with all the layers of the problem, right? And it also
Right.
helps you address a wide variety of issues
Mm-hmm.
because it is all able to help you work with all the layers. You can work with thoughts and emotions. You can work with yeah, so in terms of mental state, and then you can work with the deeper layer of beliefs, values, positive intentions. You can go further deeper into repressed memories and past experiences and traumas and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, while each approach has its own limitation, some limitations some approaches have, but when
Yes.
you integrate them seamlessly in an eclectic approach, you're able to address all the limitations,
Okay.
right? So if I can take an example of
Yes.
let's say a client has both let's say a client has a stress related health issue. And a lot of times doctors tell people that stress mat low and this is related to stress and you need to be more relaxed. And the person is not experiencing stress as such in their life. They're like happy go lucky person and they're like going through a normal life, right? Now, if they may have learned to cope with stress consciously, right?
Yes.
But there may be some stored stress based on anything, a past experience, let's say, or a memory or anything, which is still there, right? Now, if I only use cognitive approach to help them manage their thoughts, or behavioral approach to help them recondition the emotion, there is bound to be a relapse at some point because I've not addressed the stored
Mm-hmm.
stress or the stored emotion. So
Mm-hmm.
if I have something that helps me integrate all this together, then I'll be able to work at all the levels, the conscious stress and the unconscious source of stress,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in a manner that the client doesn't feel that you're jumping from technique to technique or process to process. That, today I tried this and tomorrow I tried that, right? But the therapist should know what they're combining and with what objective the client has in mind. So the client map still remains, like the most important thing for the therapist, the eclectic therapist, right?
I think that completely makes sense. So, Mamta, is eclectic, what is the overall process for eclectic approach? Is it structured or unstructured?
Okay, so Misbah, as I said, it's completely client driven. So it is structured to an extent that there's a process. As I said, we work with different layers depending on where the client is, where the problem is coming from, and so on. But it is also flexible enough to incorporate the client's point of view or the client's map. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
have a predefined, that I'm going to work with this first and this second and this third, right?
Okay.
The idea is to help the client resolve the problem and achieve the outcome. And there are indicators to understand the flow of the sessions themselves.
Okay. And that
Yeah.
indicators, are we going to discuss it today or are we going to have a next session on that?
Okay. No, I'll just go through them quickly because I've already spoken about the layers of the problem. So, in most cases,
Yes.
the session will begin by helping the client define A and B, as I said earlier. So, where they are and where they want to be, right? They also need to understand why defining that outcome is so important because you should know what you're asking for. And is that
Mm-hmm.
what you really want?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then we go to identification of the tasks that they need to do. So let's say if I take the guilt example, right, then I need to be able to communicate politely or assertively depending on what the client wants. They should be able to manage their thoughts with respect to that, conversation, that event, that subject, and also their emotions, so that they can be calm in that in that conversation. They can calmly and assertively put their point across, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, when I said, whenever I talk about mental state, I'm always addressing thoughts as well as emotions. So it's
Mm-hmm.
restructuring the thoughts, reconditioning the emotions, and then working at the larger goals. And if the client has an intense negative emotion, I've already explained
Okay.
how we work with positive intentions in terms of addictions, right? We may need to work
Mm-hmm.
with beliefs if the thoughts and emotions are being driven by deeper beliefs or values. And if there are intense negative emotions, then, if the client is directly coming to us with that, right? Then once I've identified the outcome, then I may directly skip to addressing the intense negative emotion first, and then come back to the steps that I need to take, right? So that is why I said there is a structure, but it is still flexible enough, depending on where the client what the client wants from the therapy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That really gives us an understanding. So, Mamta, I'm going to make a quick announcement to everybody who is watching us because, guys, I'm going to take up the questions in the last, like, say, 5 to 10 minutes before we end the session. And I'm going to continue with this session with my set of questions so that we have the entire understanding of eclectic approach. And I'm sure in between your questions would also be asked. Otherwise, I'm surely going to take up whatever questions you've posted on the chat, so on the comment section. Yes, so we can continue, Mamta. Sorry, I just had to
No,
tell them.
right.
Yeah.
So that's how use the eclectic approach.
Okay. Okay. So you have already given us the kind of session. Can you give us a more little brief on the session flow or the steps involved, or
Yeah,
you
so as I
already
said,
just
Ms.
what
Ma,
you
yeah.
mentioned?
So I think I just described that. So we'll help them
That is what
identify.
you said. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's how it goes. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. That sounds perfect. So once you've got this understanding of how this eclectic approach works, are there
Hmm.
any kind of limitations that one comes across, and where do you think that one cannot use or one should not use eclectic approach?
Okay. So yes, Misbah, you're right. Limitations are more in terms of where you should not use eclectic approach, because, as I said, hypnosis is a very important element. So if a client is experiencing hallucinations, severe disorders, where their vivid imagery processes can, have some negative impact. So, when we are working with these clients, we work again in consultation with a psychiatrist. Uh, you know, so that is how we go about that. If there are clients who have low blood pressure or epileptic seizures, then we'll not use any processes which induce a very deep relaxed state, right? So those are a few things that one needs to keep in mind when we are working with eclectic approach. And therapist skills are extremely important, because the subject is so vast. We are talking about integrating almost all the approaches. Then therapist skills actually become really critical to the entire process.
Excellent. So, Mamta, can you give us an understanding of what are the various therapies involved while you're working with your clients?
So yes, I've already spoken about the four major approaches, Misbah, and apart from that, we obviously use hypnosis to integrate processes. We use
Mm-hmm.
techniques from NLP, mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
metaphors, and solution-focused brief therapy. So it actually really becomes a truly, eclectic model. And any other technique or, a system of work
Modalities.
that you learn in the future as a mental health practitioner, I'm sure you'll be able to, kind of incorporate it into this larger whole approach.
Excellent. I think we have got a very eclectic understanding of the eclectic approach
That was
to
interesting.
working with
Yes.
therapies and working with our clients. So yeah, I'm going to now take up questions from our viewers. So yeah, somebody's asked. So we're done with Geeta's question, and
Anurita, we
So
have been able to answer your question. Yeah.
yeah, she's given a nice thumbs up.
Okay.
Could you ask, Upasan is asking, could you take more examples related to split in emotions and intentions of client?
Emotions and intentions. Is that the
Split in
question?
emotion. Yeah. So
So
examples
the
or
difference in emotions, right? Uh, am
I'll
I getting?
repeat the question. I'll
Okay.
repeat the question.
Right.
Uh, Examples related to
Hmm.
split in emotion and intentions of client.
Okay, Ms. Ba, I'm assuming they're talking about the distinction between emotion and intention. And please let us know if you're asking something
Yes,
different.
yeah. So you can just give an understanding on that, and if I think that's what they meant, they can give a thumbs up, and if otherwise, they can rephrase the question for a better understanding for us.
Right. So as I said, emotion is something the client is experiencing, right? They'll be able to tell you sad, happy. They may not have a wide vocabulary, but they'll be able to tell you sad, happy, angry, good,
Mm.
bad, low, excited, and so on. But when I spoke about positive intention, I am referring to the underlying intention of the unconscious, which is driving the client to a, let's say, a behavior. That behavior can be productive or unproductive, right? So let's say the positive intention to feel calm may make me meditate. That may be good for me. But the positive intention to feel calm when my partner screams at me may drive me to an addiction of alcohol, right?
Okay.
Now that, right? Now that kind of a behavior, then we need to use hypnosis to create a hyper-receptive state to access the unconscious and help the unconscious fulfill that positive intention with an alternate behavior that is productive and not unproductive for the client, right? With respect to the client's map, of course. So that is where we talk about positive intention, the positive intention of the unconscious, right? So that is what we are talking
I'm sure, Upasna, your question has
about.
been answered. If you have uh, understood it, please give a thumbs up or you can rephrase the question for us. So there's Muralidhar G who's asking that sometimes clients play a game with you if they've been brought to you against their will. How do you deal with such instances?
Okay, obviously, if they've been brought to you against their will, then most such clients believe that, for lack of any other phrase, you are on the team of the person who has brought them, right?
Yes.
And I will not call it play a game. I would say that there's a lack of rapport. So how do you build rapport or trust in such a case? So this is how we do it, or I do it, is that we tell the client. So one is anybody who's accompanying them will not be a part of the session, or they will not be in the therapy room. So I talk to the client and I tell them that that is whatever they have told me is whatever they have told me. That has, now that you are here, I am more concerned with uh, what you're feeling or what you want to work with, right? In case they say that I don't want to work with anything, I don't have an issue. They feel that I am mad, or they feel that I am that I need therapy, right? Let's say they say that they feel I need therapy. I don't think I need therapy. So I would ask them, so what does that make you feel when you think they say that you need therapy and you don't think you need therapy?
Hmm.
Let's say the person says, obviously I feel irritated, obviously I feel frustrated, and I tell them, so how if I can help you work with just that irritation and frustration? And most of the people say yes to that.
Wow, that's such a nice and a calmer and a mellowed down way to bring the
Right.
client to, you know,
And because the
talking.
person, I'm assuming the person who has brought them also has some kind of a relationship with them. So when we start working with that frustration, irritation, obviously in at some point that relationship will also become a part of the equation, and they'll also be able to address that. But for me, the client is the client. The person who has brought the client is not my client.
Exactly. That is important to understand and be aware of. काफी बार ऐसे भी होता है ना कि बच्चों को ले आते हैं पेरेंट्स
हाँ,
या
हाँ,
कभी अडल्ट्स अडोलेसेंट्स को ले आते हैं या अडल्ट्स को ले आते हैं एंड दे डोंट वांट टू कम बट द फैमिली और द नियर वंस फील दैट इनको जरूरत है So I
Right.
think
So,
that's the important
yes.
point she's
In
mentioned.
case of kids, there is a difference because kids mostly are dependent on their
Yes.
parents. They may not be able to exercise will, with their parents. So, in case of children, then that is how we do at iCharge. We make it mandatory for at least one parent to come for therapy, if not both.
Oh wow. That would really help for the client to get the kid, if the kid is a client, to get an understanding and an environment to make the therapy work more effectively.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Lovely. I'm sure, Murlidhar ji, your question is answered. And I think Nidhi is asking something. Is there any way to identify stored background stress?
Stored
Background stress. Matlab, I think repressed stress
stored background
or,
stress.
yeah.
Okay. So when you start work, as I said, when you work with let's say you work with thoughts and emotions, and you tell the client, you know, uh, you observe the client for a week and you ask for feedback. If a sustainable change has been created,
Hmm.
then you can follow up with the client for a few more weeks, and that is it. But if you see a relapse, or you notice a change that was not expected, or something else has happened instead of the desirable change, then that is an
Hmm.
indicator that you need to go deeper and work with the deeper layers,
Okay. Okay.
right?
I'm sure, Nidhi, that answers your question. So, Rashmi has asked a very interesting question, and it goes like that please tell us how to confront jealous relatives finding hard to live with them.
Okay, so that was Rashmi.
Yes.
Yeah. So Rashmi, my question would be, what do you want to do when you have to confront the jealous relatives? What So my first question, as I said, my first question is, what is your outcome? So what would you like to do about it? So when, if you have to confront them, what mental state would you like to be in? And when we work with a person with such an issue, then we'll also come to, some, they may need to develop a skill, or they may just need to be in a mental state. So in therapy you can do that.
Mhm.
But if
Yeah,
you're
so
talking
because,
about yourself, then I would highly recommend, please go to a therapist. Don't self therapeutize.
yeah. See, a therapist also needs a therapist. So I'm
Right.
sure that's
Right.
something that all of us can do, and it's okay to
Yes.
do, and
Yes.
it's fine to
It's
do.
important. Yes. Yes.
It's important
Yes.
for our mental well-being also.
Absolutely.
So I think there's one more question, Mamta. Bhakti is asking, what are the skills required for therapists while using different types of approach?
So, Bhakti, once again, my indicators are again the layers of the problem. You should be one, be able to obviously, ask the right questions at the right time. That is really important in eclectic approach, because we are only trying to help the client explore their map, right? The idea is not to
Mhm.
plant ideas or try to change that map. The idea is only to explore that map, and while exploring, if the client says that this is something I want to change, or this is something I want to let go of, or this is something I want to add, in terms of a skill, then that, so you need to be able to give the client that flexibility, and that happens when you're listening, asking the right questions, and listening effectively without judgment, right?
Mhm.
And that directly can be derived from the principle that we spoke of. The map is not the territory, and they understand their maps the best. They may need to, get into a receptive state to understand it better, let's say at the unconscious level, but they know their maps best. So, in very simple terms, the client knows their lives best. I can never know it better than them, right?
Right.
So that is one. The second is to always remember that it will be always client driven. I can
Mhm.
only, I'm more like a facilitator who, helps them explore, helps them identify what change they need to make, what is the, best way of making that change. And then also be able to work with, then in terms of, therapeutic skills, be able to work with thoughts, emotions, beliefs, all those layers, right? And obviously be able to help the client get into that hyper receptive state. So obviously the skills with respect to hypnosis, and because it is such a vast subject, I'm happy you asked that question. So you need a wide array of skills. So these are the key ones that I've spoken about, right? So you need a great deal of practice. That
Mm-hmm.
I think we can't stop emphasizing ever on that. So those are broadly the skills that you need. But when you work in an eclectic approach, the principles itself take care of the fact that you become non-judgmental, empathetic, all the principles that we talk about in most of the therapies and approaches, how to have unconditional positive regard. So when I realize that the person, the client knows their map best, obviously I have I realize they are the best judge of their life. So I'm no judge. So that takes the judgment out, that takes the bias out, and my bag of belief out. So the way we work also takes care of a lot of things that you need to do.
Absolutely. That is really a very important point, Mamta, that you've made, that to keep our belief systems aside while we are working with the clients. And yes, the clients know the best what they actually need. They might at times not be aware about it, or maybe not vocal about it.
Perfect. Or not in a state where they can.
Not
So
in a
then my
state.
task,
Yes,
yes. So then my task is to enable them do all that.
absolutely. So I think we are. Yeah, there's one more question that's just come up by Prarthana, yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Clients do also come with particular therapy in mind to be used. How do you convince the client if the particular approach asked is not working?
Okay. Okay. What would you do, Misbah, if that happened with you? Um.
हाँ मेरे साथ हुआ है. So I tell them that if required we'll do it, uh,
Hmm.
but this is the way I function, or this is the approach that I follow. So obviously I also follow an integrated eclectic approach. So
Hmm.
this is how where working would become easier for you as a client and me as a therapist or a coach. So I think they come around, they get an understanding कि भाई at the end of the day जो प्रोसेसेस इफेक्टिवली काम कर रहे हैं और जिसमें ज़्यादा कम मेहनत लग रही हो, सॉरी ज़्यादा नहीं, कम मेहनत लग रही हो, तो व्हाई नॉट स्टार्ट विद दैट ओनली?
Absolutely, I completely agree. And if you can help them understand that there is a more efficient process, or you are not against using that particular approach. It's just that if that approach is needed and whenever it is needed, you are open to using it.
Absolutely.
So make them an active participant in the process. You don't need to help them understand all
Yes.
the models and therapies that you're working with, but make them a participant. Let them know that this is how we're going to work broadly. So I think that's the best approach.
Yes. So I think, Ratna, that answers your question. And yes, we are at the end of the session, and it was a wonderful session, Mamta. It was very informative on our approach towards working with an eclectic approach. Yes, to
Yes,
therapy.
yes.
uh, thank you everybody who's been watching us, and thank you, Mamta, for your valuable time and input. And yes, I'm going to see you all again tomorrow at 4, and we are going to have a session tomorrow on counseling by Dr. Asha, which had lastly been postponed due to the technical issue. And yes, in case you need furthermore information or queries on how we go about working, you can definitely visit our website, which is www.ichas.com. And we are there. A lot of information regarding our kind of work, eclectic approach. And yes, you can contact us also. Thank you so much,
Yes.
everybody. Thank you,
Thank you for
Mamta, once
hosting me.
again.
Thank you everyone for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.